do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Counter Racist Code Show. CRCS with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am the co-host, Mr. Bobby. And again, good morning. The contact number is 516-453-9921. Or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. So welcome aboard for today's programming. Live from Washington, D.C. and on the line, Mr. Fuller is in one location and I am in another. But through technology, sometimes it just seems like we're sitting across the table from one another and speaking. But technology fixes it so that we can have this communication and be able to speak to you. So as my custom has been, to start off by saying, good morning, Mr. Fuller, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Mr. Fuller, before we start today's programming, there are people that are interested in your codified thoughts about this pandemic coronavirus. I don't know how they got that name. I know Corona is a Mexican beer that supposedly came out of Wuhan province in China. You know, I don't know. I don't know who I could ask about that or what's going on. But since it appears to be global, with the statistics that are bombarded always, and this nation appears to be shut down in a lot of strategic areas, except for some basic human services. What are the thoughts or direction considering codification that we might want to consider in your opinion?
Well, according to what I have written, I've always anticipated these type of events, and so I wrote about it in the textbook for victims of racism. In times of floods, hurricanes, earthquakes, fires, or any kind of diseases, the blame game is out. Anytime you have large numbers of people who are suffering, white or non-white, the code says, regardless of how it got started, somebody's mistakes or something like that, or something that people brought on themselves, but anything of this size that does harm, you immediately go into helping those who need help the most. That's when you're really consistent about that, because that's the ultimate aim anyway, in getting rid of any problem that we have among the people of the planet. The first step, the major step, helping those who need help the most without harming anyone. Don't do any harm to anyone. And you do that in all 9 areas of activity, the most constructive help that can be given. To whom? To whomever you happen to be around, starting with yourself, because you can't help anyone else if you can't help yourself. And that's part of the United Independent concept. That's why I said it always starts with the individual person. I've been underlining that for years. The individual should think of him or herself as a person put here to be universal. If, in other words, by that I mean have a frame of mind. What if you woke up and found yourself on the planet alone? There's nobody here but you. What would your task be? To look around and see what you can do to help yourself to make things better. What things? Everything around you that needs to be made better since you're here. And that's the root of the entire book that I've written. It's addressed to the system of racism, which is the biggest problem among people on the planet. People not being able to get along in harmony, in peace, because of this color business. But for any other reason that would come up, ultimately, 1,000 years from now, 10 million years from now, you're an individual person. You're put here with limits and with talents. Every person is. So you use your talents to produce the most constructive result because it's all a gift. And in the middle of this pandemic, everything that we have up to now has been a gift, G-I-F-T. You didn't do anything to earn it. None of us, white or non-white, male or female, old people, young people, someone who comes here and stays, like a lot of people throughout the world have, as far back as anybody can remember, someone who came here and stayed 15 minutes or less. Babies that were born took one breath, inhale, which is what we all do, and then exhale just one time, inhale one time, exhale one time, and then immediately left.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, just inhale and exhale. That has happened to millions of people down through the ages. And the doctor walks out and says, well, the baby didn't make it. But then someone else took an inhaling and an exhaling, since that's what we're all trying to do now, desperately trying to inhale and exhale. From what I hear about this coronavirus, there's a breathing problem here. Breath days. You're trying to hold on to them. You're trying to hold on to breathing moments, like every baby that comes into the world, like every creature that comes into the world, including undersea creatures. Whales come to the surface in order to what? Exhale and inhale. You see that spout of water go up out of a humpback whale, or different types of whales, sperm whales, and the different types of undersea creatures. Air. They need air. So from what I hear about the coronavirus, we need air. You come here needing air. You stop breathing. That's one of the most precious things that, if not the most precious thing, that you have here. Water is precious, but air, you're born in water. Water carries a lot of air, from what I've heard, a huge portion of it. So, we're being sent a message. We need to heed that message. And like Rodney King has said, and like I've mentioned on this program, his quote, if I remember correctly, can we all get along? We're stuck here for a while. Can we all get along? We're stuck here for a while. Now, that's profound.
Mm-hmm.
And that takes it all in. I mean, nobody who is white, nobody who is non-white, we don't know why we are here. I mean, except we find out why we are here just by crawling along and trying to figure it out. But it's all a what? Gift. G-I-F-T. We found ourselves here. What we act like, we are here to do all kinds of crazy stuff, like what we have been doing. The more talent we generate, the more energy we generate, the more so-called intelligence we generate. Look at the mess we have made of this entire environment called the planet Earth, a very unique place. And we go around glorifying garbage and think that it's funny. And the white supremacists are the leaders of it at this particular time, unfortunately. Might have been other people before then, but none of us are so-called human beings have acted the way that we should act toward ourselves, toward each other, and toward the entire environment. And that is the truth. And so now, I hope that this, of course, from studying history, it's just a hope. But it's not going to hold up, I don't think. And that is, if we're going to learn anything from this, as soon as the pressure is off, and it will be, even though millions of people might die, I don't know. That's what my thoughts are about it. Millions and millions and millions. This thing might just spread and turn into something else and morph into another virus of some other type, and people just start dying from by the zillions and suffering. It might come with a lot of pain and be stretched out, and everybody running all over the place trying to figure out what to do. I don't know. I don't know what's coming down the pike. I don't think anybody does. The white supremacists, of course, are in the best position to know because they're the most powerful people on the planet. But these things can happen. Now, those are my thoughts about it.
Okay.
So what do you do? It always comes down. Everything in counter races or compensatory science, which is basically what this is all about, making up for what's missing. Help those that need help the most right there in front of you, starting with yourself. And then put the life jacket on somebody else if you can help them. Anybody standing nearest to you. And just keep doing that. And maybe we can weave ourselves through this and learn something from it that will change us forever from what we are now to what we should have been in the first place.
Okay. All righty. Let's go to the phone lines and let's get Dante in on that. Let me see here. We can get him up here. We're going to get Dante. Okay, Dante, good morning, and you are on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Mr. Fuller. So for me, I've taken your code and logic to, I guess, logical conclusion in the best of ways I can. You know, I feel like anytime someone asks me how I'm doing, my response is that I'm still a victim of racism, white supremacy, because that's the truth. And so with that in place, you know, we're saying that racism, white supremacy is maintained by two things, deception and direct violence. So taking that to its logical conclusion, like I see that everything is either deception or direct violence. Otherwise, the system of racism, white supremacy isn't being maintained if those two things aren't always the scenario. So with that being the case, like, you know, I guess my question is, you know, how can you believe that anything is true or anything that is real or anything in this pandemic is true and not deception or direct violence actually being perpetrated against you?
It could be. That's why I say we don't know. We're just prisoners of war milling around in the prison yard while all this is going on. Because if you are a black person, what do we know about anything except what we're told? So we're told there is a pandemic. And there is some evidence that something is going on that's different. That's for sure. Something is going on that's different. I don't care what kind of label you put on it. Okay, so it still comes down to what do you do when you get up every morning? Well, you do what you should have been doing all the time and what everybody should be doing all the time, every minute that they're on the planet, and that is what? Guaranteeing that no one is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Now, starting with whom? Starting with as you as an individual, me as an individual, everybody as an individual person, because you're not 10 or 12 people, you're just one person, and you are somewhere on the planet. Just look and see who needs help the most. Starting with yourself. Now, after you help yourself, you put on your own life jacket, you might say, swimming in a turbulent ocean, and then you look around and you see somebody who is fixing to go under. You don't know who the someone is, but the someone is right near you, and you're in this turbulent ocean. You just grab the person, if you have the strength to do so, and hold on to them and keep them from going under. Now you might say, well, who is it? You recognize it as being a person, as someone who is screaming for help. He didn't have a life jacket. You got on one. So you just grab them and hold on as long as you can. And maybe, another life jacket from somewhere comes out of nowhere and floats near you, and you held on just long enough for them to grab it. Now 2 people are being able to float. And hopefully the person that you help will have the correct mindset to look around after they get their own strength together and see who they can help. And that's all that there is. That's all we have to think about. Why? Because you don't have any other options anyway except to make things worse. And you don't ever want to make things worse in any situation. You want to be a person who has a record, not a record where you're trying to prove anything to any person except yourself and whatever created you. And that is, I did the best that I could with what I had. That's what Judge Thurgood Marshall said when they asked him how he wanted to be remembered for his years that he had spent here on this planet. He said, I did the best I could with what I had. Meaning whatever life jacket he had, he just put it on and tried to swim as best he could and try to help anybody else who needed to stay afloat. Why? Because that's all he had. That's all any of us have. Okay? For the most part. Some of us have more jackets than others, more than we need, and which is a signal to do what? Spread those jackets around. Those who are in better position to do so. Put them out there. You hear people screaming out there in the dark. They're going under. Throw those jackets out there. You got them. Throw them out there. You don't need but one to save yourself.
Okay. That was my next question.
That's the law of compensation. That's the United Independent Way. That's the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. That's why that's the title of the book.
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, and you carry that all the way through in everything that's going on, regardless of who is cooking up lies, and there are plenty of those, and who is telling the truth, and a few people might be doing that. But you just go with what? Try not to do any harm and help those who need help the most in the most constructive and underlying constructive manner. That's it. It's not a difficult thing to think about. I don't really worry about it because I know that's the fundamental anyway, because
Yes,
it's
sir.
all a gift. We should all keep that in mind. It's all a gift. Every breath that you have taken up to now was given to you. You didn't do anything to earn it. We didn't earn every breath that I have ever taken. I didn't do anything to earn that. That's given to me. So I'm just giving it back if I have my last one right this second. What's the big deal? I didn't lose anything because I didn't have any investment to start with. Where was I 50 trillion years ago? I wasn't breathing at all, I don't guess. And if I was here, I certainly don't remember it. So
Yes.
that means something is greater than me.
All right, Dante, before I let you go, do you have any additional questions you'd like to ask?
Yeah, I had a follow-up, actually. So, taking that to its logical conclusion of justice and helping the people who need the most help and ensuring that no person is mistreated. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing says the first people on this planet were crystal black. And, genetically speaking, that makes sense. And, but if you look at the phenotypes and how the world looks today, the crystal black and the darkest people are almost extinct. And, I feel like the primary targets of the system of racism, white supremacy, are the crystal black or the darkest of black men. We're the primary targets because we are most at risk to put, white in genetic annihilation. And I can see around the world that we're going out of existence. We're becoming extinct. So, from my perspective, the people who need the most help will always be black men because the system has put black men on the bottom, and that everything else is like a form of deception to keep us from paying attention and taking care of black men. So, I guess when you say people who need the most help, are you talking about situationally or as a whole across the universe? Because from my perspective, it will always be black men until justice is achieved.
Well, I don't know and if you're asking me, I don't know if it will always be black men or not. I just know that when I look around the planet now, black people are the focus of every joke, of every type of nonsense that can possibly come up. I mean, there's the dumping ground for every type of garbage you can name, and we got heads full of garbage because that's where the garbage is dumped first. So that the black people of this planet is just our minds are just swimming in garbage. We're garbage people in our minds. I'm not talking about like people who have jobs collecting garbage and whatnot. That has nothing to do with the person. I'm talking about our minds are full of garbage. I mean, the way that we think, our ambitions, the things that we even want to do is a bunch of garbage as a whole, as a collective. And because we've been made that way. But we should throw all that garbage out of our minds, clear our minds, and become, ultimately, universal man, universal woman, in tune with the very best that there is in the entire universe, starting with being problem solvers rather than problem makers. In every situation that we're in, try to figure out, now what can I do to help solve a problem? Small problem, my mind might not be able to stretch to maybe solve what looks like all the problems that's going on, or any of them. But you do your best anyway. Just get into that mix and say, now, I'm here, and what's my mission? To solve problems, to try to make things better than they are, and try to make them perfect ultimately. So what's the best thing to do? The best thing to do is to start. Like Memphis Slim said in the song, paraphrasing, as you go through life, you can't help knowing you can always get help, but only the way you're going. So you just start. Just get up and get down the road and start saying, I'm going to solve some type of problem, because there's plenty of problems. I'm not going to be long before I run into one. The minute I get up, I'm going to get smacked down with some kind of problem. So it's just a problem of getting up again, okay? And then once you surmount that one, then you go on down the road, and certainly there are going to be all kinds of stumbling blocks, mountains in your way, Joe Cocker says, and love lift us up where we belong or something, all right? So you just encounter whatever it is that's a problem and start solving it. We're here to be problem solvers rather than the world's greatest problem makers. That's the reputation we have. And we have been trained to enjoy it. We could practically go around bragging about it. Oh man, I'm gonna kick some behind. I'm gonna do this. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Stop and do some thinking. Is that what you're put here for? Is that what you have fingers and eyes and hands and feet and a brain to even think like that? Not to say anything about talking like that and acting like that, but that's what we have been made into, that type of creature, that anybody with any ounce of 2 cents wouldn't want to be around us the way that we are now. That's why we can't stand ourselves, running around trying to get out of ourselves. And we should be trying to get out of ourselves, and considering what we are. We're a lot worse than what we seem to be to ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, black people are a mess. MESS, underline. But we've been that way so long, we have got comfortable with it. Compared to what? Compared to white people? No, absolutely not. Compared to what? Compared to the universal man and universal woman that we ought to be. White people ought to be universal men and universal women. But they're stuck on that thing about just being racist man and racist woman. That's real shallow. We shouldn't be anything like that. Shouldn't have that as an ambition. That's not even a mentionable stopping point along where we need to be. That's not even a good lift-off. That's awful. Racism as a platform for living? No. We don't want to be anything similar to that. That's why we shouldn't brag about being black. We didn't do nothing to be black, so why are we bragging? And that's another thing while I'm talking about it. After this mess is over, or while this mess is going on, we should take this opportunity to get out of the bragging business altogether. Black people should be the pioneers in getting rid of bragging. No more parades bragging about anything, ever, until we become the type of people that we ought to be and should have been in the first place. That's the compensatory way. Just that thing alone. Stop bragging about anything. We don't have anything to brag about. Nothing. Zero. Less than zero.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dante, for your questions and for your participation. Let's see here. Let's take this break here. We have to do this anyway. Let's see, queued up the music, and here we go. You are now listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. It is also called, I coined that, CRCS. I had permission to do that. With Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. To get in contact with the show, you may call 516-453-9921, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. And while you are there, let me say this. When you do call that number, if you press the number one button after you call it, you will be expedited to the front of the line, and you will be next in line if Mr. Fuller is answering the question, or if there's someone before you, you will be after that person there. Just want to get that straight. But make sure you hit that number one button, and you get to move up. Even before I read Gmails, which I have a few to read also. So again, you are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show, the CRCS with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. and me, your co-host, Mr. Bobby, here at ProduceJustice.com. Make sure you tell your friends that. Mr. Fuller is at ProduceJustice.com. And there you will hear all the information, or view all the information that Mr. Fuller had, information about the books, information about the distribution of the books, and how you can get access to the show and whatever else is on there. That's at ProduceJustice.com. As a matter of fact, in a few moments, I'll have Mr. Fuller speak about the book. And one more thing before we go to Sean, make sure that you get a copy of that book, and Mr. Fuller will talk about that. All righty, let's go to Sean. Sean, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead with your question.
Good morning, Mr. Bobby, Mr. Fuller.
Morning,
I have a question. Mr. Fuller often says anything that happens that should not happen, we should blame the usual suspects, the white supremacists. Does that apply with this pandemic that we're having right now?
It could, yes. I mean, if they are the ones who have anything to do with it, the code book says if they have anything to do with it, they brought it about, or they allowed it to become a priority, because they are the smartest and most powerful people on the planet. They're in charge of this prison camp called Planet Earth that's based on suppressing people of color on account of they are born with color in their skin, and they made this choice that they're going to set up a system of government called white supremacy, which is what they have done. And they say that's the best system of government that the world has ever seen, which is the most powerful. And it gets things done. And they're correct about that. It's powerful. Racism is a powerful idea that has been put into practice, much more powerful than any other idea, political system, so-called communism, whatever that is, capitalism, whatever that is, socialism, whatever that is, royalism, whatever that is, democracy, whatever that is, republicanism, whatever that is. None of them, or all of them put together, have been in my view, they have been incorporated, all of these systems, into one system called the system of white supremacy. They have features of capitalism, the way I've been taught to understand it, features of communism, socialism, royalism. That's all of them, the system of white supremacy. And all of the religions have absorbed all the power out of all of them, so that most of them are just anemic, just people going through rituals, burning incense and stuff like that, and not doing much of anything other than that, waving from balconies, and assigning people fancy titles and all that, and strutting around doing this and that and the other, not producing anything. The white supremacists produce. okay, and they make other people produce, okay? They're the most powerful and the smartest people that this planet has ever seen, built on an evil system. The world is dominated by an evil system called the system of white supremacy. That's the most powerful government that the world has ever seen and the most efficient. There's never been a government more efficient than that. But it's evil. Why is it evil? It produces things and put priorities on things and putting on a big show based on what? Destroying people of color, making them into absolute trash if they're going to be breathing, and if they're not breathing, just use them for whatever you use dead material for. And that's not the correct system. We need a system of justice and correctness. We need universal men and universal women of all shades of color, heights, weights, and the best of the genders, male with female. I'm going to say that. That's going to hurt a lot of feelings and it's going to make a lot of people angry. But that's the best arrangement. Male with female so far. Not all these experimental, a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a whole lot of the other without knowing, nothing's been proven from it about it being, where is the real quality? Because in most things, there's something that's a little better than others. Most arrangements, flower arrangements or anything. Some arrangements are better than others. Not all arrangements are equal, okay? Giving people some medicine. There are some medicines that are better than others. I mean, you can have it and you'll say, well, I get a little relief from this, but you try another medicine and that medicine is a little better. So you always go for the best. The compensatory concept is to make everything the way it really ought to be. The ultimate. Can't get any better. All right? Someone was advertising cars in the 1950s, and it kind of caught my ear the way they said when better cars are built, this particular company will build them. And then somebody who said that they're going to compete with that said, my car is no better.
Let go.
Okay.
Can I add something else, if you don't mind, guys?
Yeah, quickly, please, sir.
Okay, and Mr. Fuller, I know you often say that the white supremacists think long range. They think 500, 1,000 years down the line. So this pandemic that's going on, it's mostly affecting people classified as white, opposed to people classified as non-white. Do you also believe that that's a part of the white supremacist long-term agenda to sacrifice, to have a multitude of white sacrifices, ultimately to have their ultimate agenda to come after people classified as non-white?
Well, at this particular point, my thoughts on the coronavirus is it could be just a natural phenomena, like everyone is saying, that it's one of those things, like the flu, that this, But here's what. The white supremacists, just like a lot of them now, buying up guns and whatnot, they're always thinking about, the racial angle. They can't help it. They can't help it. They're trained that way. Their whole existence has been, founded on that. Without that, they don't know what we're here for on the planet. Without racism, that's why they don't want to turn loose to it. They say, well, yeah, but we get rid of racism. What am I going to do? Even for enjoyment, even for entertainment. If not, I'm not kicking non-white people around. I mean, my goodness. I mean, well, what's the point in living? I mean, it's gotten that bad over a period of time. Some people say a few hundred years. Some people say at least, 2,000 to 6,000. That's a long time to have this one value system, this one thing that you think about in the back of your mind and the front of your mind all the time. So in answer to your question, yes, the races will look at a disease and say, well, now, I didn't invent this disease, but it's here. So, hey, and a lot of my people are suffering from it, and I'm going to try to figure out how to cure it. But before I do that, or even if I come up with a cure, I'm going to make sure that a whole bunch of these dark-skinned people get clobbered. And that is the one thing that I'm thinking about as I sit here today. I hope that they don't do that. Now, they can probably get a handle on it because, like I said, they're the smartest people on the planet. Those white people who believe in white supremacy, unfortunately, are the smartest and most powerful people on the planet at this time. I don't know of any people smarter and more powerful, all right? And if someone says, no, Fuller, like some people have said that to me, no, they're not smart, well, then I say, okay, who are the smartest people? Us? Homeboy? That's the smartest person on the planet? Talking about another drive-by shooting? Is that the smartest person on the planet? Yes or no? So come on. I mean, who tells me what to do? Where do I get my information? Where do I get the food and the toilet paper that I need? Directly, indirectly. First of all, from somebody white. Presumably, maybe somebody white who's not a white supremacist. But overall, the white supremacists. Because they are the smartest and most powerful. And for anybody not to recognize that, you're evading the truth according to what? Neely Fuller? No, according to the evidence.
Okay.
And once you start telling yourself lies just to feel good, you have already messed up big time, and that's an insult to the Creator. The Creator of what? This entire universe.
Mm-hmm.
When you start lying to yourself, you are insulting the Creator.
All righty. Thank you very much, Sean, for
Thank you,
your
Appreciate
call. All righty. I'm going to ask that because of the volume of calls that we are getting or communicating with Mr. Fuller, he would love to answer your questions or your inquiries. But I'm going to ask you if you would just basically limit them to one because so many people want to speak with Mr. Fuller, and I have allowed you to go ahead on and speak, and sometimes it's getting out of hand, and I don't want it to get out of hand. So if you could, please, ma'am, please, sir, just limit your question to one and make it concise so that Mr. Fuller can answer it thoroughly. As you see, he will answer your question thoroughly. Okay, at this particular point, I am going to have Mr. Fuller very briefly speak about his book. Mr. Fuller, please.
Textbook for Victims of White Supremacy. That's the one of the supplementary titles, compensatory titles, or equal titles. Textbook, workbook for thought, speech, and or action. You think, then you speak, then you act, for victims of racism. That's what my book is addressed to. And the revised expanded edition, 2016 edition, is available at producejustice.com. But there are other titles on that cover of that book. The main title is The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, which is why I take the universal view before I work myself down to the racial view, which just is confined to the people of this planet and whatnot. But I'm saying the people of this planet shouldn't just be thinking about this planet. They should be thinking about their mission in the entire universe. All people should be thinking about that. What are we here for? And so far, too many white people say, well, I'm here to be a white supremacist and to dominate and mistreat people of color. That's what I'm here for. That's my agenda. And everything that I do, my folklore in all 9 areas of activity, economics, all of my education, all of my entertainment, every joke that I tell, there's got to be a joke about Sambo, all right? Labor, yeah, have those black people out there chopping cotton and whatnot while I sit on the veranda and have another one standing over me, have his mother standing there by me, fanning me all day while I sip mint julep. Now, this is the height of what I call civilization. Now, that's the white supremacist mindset. That's not a universal mindset. That's not a we're put here to improve everything in the known universe, make it better without harming anyone. That's not a part of the package at all. Nowhere on the radar should that ever have been. Glorifying war, glorifying bodies, having body counts and think that that's funny. What's the body count for today? How many people do we drop bombs on today? All right, burn them alive. Oh, boy, look at that. Ain't that pretty? Let's make a movie about it. Hey, let's make 2 or 3 dozen movies about it. You know, just having people tear up things, you know, and call themselves what? Civilized. This is the height of civilization. Everybody with a sword in his hand is civilized and has a civilizing influence. Well, yeah, right. But that's not what this book is about. It's about doing just the opposite from that. Not harming anyone and trying to help everyone who needs help the most and giving them the most constructive help. Not helping them to be more destructive, giving them constructive help. That's what we're here for, and that's what I wrote the book about. Get the book by going to producejustice.com. But the focus is you can't straighten out nothing without getting rid of racism, because that's the dominant force on the planet.
Okay.
So that's the focus right now. The ultimate focus is being universal man, universal woman.
All righty. ProduceJustice.com is where you can get the book, and I urge everybody to get the book. One more thing before we go to Mark from Canada, because he's next on the to speak. Someone was asking about white supremacists listening. Of course we want white supremacists to listen. You never know what might can happen. See, nothing, even if they say something or something derogative, it's okay. Let them listen. You never know what might happen.
Let them call in and put their hand. Tell me how I am being steered incorrectly, and justify that. You know, even if it's a person who is a staunch white supremacist, justify. Make your case.
Yeah,
I'd like
call
to hear
in.
it. I mean, if it makes sense, I'll go along with it, but I don't think so.
Yes, I'm so happy you said that, Mr. Fuller, because I'm looking at some stuff right now.
If it makes sense, I will go. If it's logical and constructive, I'll go along with it, but I don't see anything logical and constructive about it. I mean, the kind of creatures that they are making out of us.
Mm-hmm.
Man, this is a terrible product.
Okay. All righty. Thanks for holding. Mark from Canada. Go ahead, please, sir. You're on with Mr. Fuller.
Thank you very much. I'd like to wish you two gentlemen and all the listeners, of course, Godspeed in this current crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic. But my question is, Mr. Fuller, do you think we're truly interested in changing the system of white supremacy, or would we just be contented the way it is if they were nicer to us? Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
I missed the core of that question. It sounds
Wait a minute,
like
Mark, before you hang up, could you repeat that question?
Yes. Are we interested as a people in changing the system of white supremacy? Or would we just be fine the way it is if they were a little bit nicer to us?
Should we find a way of what?
Would we be fine having them in charge, having the system the way it is, if they were nicer to us or treat us much better?
Well, if I understand the question, is there something much better than the system of white supremacy? Is that what you're saying?
I believe he said, would we as a people be fine with this system if they treated us better?
Yes.
Oh, well, it's not being treated better, it's being treated correctly. I mean, what is better depending on what you're measuring it by. See, the white supremacists have their own idea about what's better. And what's better, they like war. I mean, nobody should like war. Nobody should glorify war. Killing people. I mean, you get bored, so you go out and kill some people. What kind of logic is that? Because you're bored. Because that's what a lot of it is. Just pure boredom. Well, I'm yawning today, so I'm bored. I can't find nothing to do. I think I'll take a stroll over there to the Coliseum and watch somebody being eaten by the lions. And then they put that in a history book and say, now this is the format for the world civilizations. Everybody fall in line behind it. That's a bunch of nonsense. Pure nonsense. I mean, you build something called a Coliseum and then have people going on tours to see it. And you say, what do people used to do here? Did they manufacture the cure for the coronavirus here at this Coliseum where the great Roman emperors resided? Did you manufacture anything that would cure the coronavirus? No. We saw people being eaten by lions, hauling in a whole bunch of dark-skinned people to run around and being chased by a lion until he finally gives out a breath and the lion eats him. And the women cheer and say, put that in a history book and call it civilization, the rise of civilization. That's a bunch of nonsense. White supremacist nonsense. And it shouldn't be wished on anybody. So treating us better? No. Get rid of the system of white supremacy because it never should have, put no standard like that out there. That's nothing but pure poison. You're going to take one of the creator's products and say you're the wrong color? You already messed up right there. Big time. No such thing as a wrong color. You're going to tell the creator made something and put the wrong color on it. But you got the idea for the correct color. No, wrong color. You got to kill it. The creator made a mistake. Marcus Garvey said it. God made black people black, and he didn't make a mistake. But the creator, the white supremacist said, oh, well, no, I mean, no, whatever created those people, sorry about that. But, I mean, now these creatures have got to be hunted down and shot down in the streets, and they got to be, whipped, and do my bidding. And, and for what? For fun, for glory, and for my material comfort. And eventually a little bit of theirs. And that's the best arrangement that anybody can ever make. And we should reject that whole package and say, no. Our aim should be universal man and universal woman. And nobody on the planet now is qualified for that. And mainly because the white supremacist does not allow that. Because what are the characteristics of universal man and universal woman, according to the code, is that you don't do anybody any harm. That's number one. And you help everybody who needs help the most, because everybody needs some type of help from the day that they are born. And you stay here, and you every day, whether you think you need it or not, you need help. Somebody is helping you directly or indirectly. People are creatures who are made to need help. And we're supposed to be that way. And
yes,
we're
sir.
supposed to receive it from each other.
Mm-hmm. All right.
But we'll mess that up awful. The white supremacists leading the pack.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Mark, from Canada. Appreciate the call. We have listeners calling in worldwide. Let me say this to my people who help make Mr. Fuller and myself sound good. Robert, and then Leon, the engineer. I affectionately call him Moon Pie, but you'd have to understand that if you were young enough to know what moon pies were. But they make us sound real good. So thank you for keeping us where we should be. I'd like to say to Raj, I have you lined up. Brandon, you had some VGQ that I have my team vetting that and checking or fact checking that information. Daryl with DERRO, I am going to get a chance to answer your question. Jane Lance, and I do have permission to use her name, and she gave that to me, has a question. And Daryl with DA, who always calls in or writes in. Daryl, I read your Gmail, and it is rather lengthy. I would ask, since you are listening, unless you can't, that you call in so that you could ask that question. It is rather lengthy, or what you led up to, but I will try to do the best I can. I want to say that I appreciate all of you, and Mr. Fuller does also. I think I can speak for him, for your calls, even your VGQs, and even the white supremacists. Yes, we do have white supremacists that listen into the station. The technology that Leon and Robert have for me allows me to be able to see a lot of things. Who's calling in and so forth, and they protect Mr. Fuller and they protect myself, so we appreciate that. Like I said, I'm vetting the information, and my research team that is in back of me, they are vetting that information that Brandon wrote so that we can see it. It's concerning the virus. Let's see here. Got about 3 minutes before this goes. Before we have to go to the second hour, and Ronnie Stokes, I'm working on yours too. Dorothy, you too. So many like to speak with Mr. Fuller, and there's so many questions, and we appreciate that. That's why I say I never run out. Okay, let me see here. Let's do this. Okay. Mr. Fuller, do you know anything about this so-called new technology, which is, I guess they're wiring all the country 5G? Have you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard anything about it at all, but I'm quite sure there are thousands of things that are in somebody's catalog, the white supremacists mostly, that I don't know about and never will.
Okay. Well, this is an ongoing thing. They are wiring the country right now for this new latest technology. With the cell phones, we use 4G, and now they're coming 5G. But I've heard a lot of different things. I couldn't vet it concerning 5G and what's going on now with this pandemic. Yes, the coronavirus. And Jane Lance asked a very profound question, which I'm going to ask as we enter into the second hour. Go ahead and cue the music up for me so we can introduce the second hour. Thank you. You're listening, and thank you to the Counter Racist Code Show, also called the CRCS. Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. Now, to get in contact with the show, 516-453-9921. That's 516-453-9921. Now, when you call that number, make sure you hit the number 1 button, and you will fall into a special rotation where we can get to your question sooner, as Mr. Fuller is answering a question, or if he's not on a Gmail. So make sure you do that, as Richard has done from California. Okay. So yes, again, the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. 516-453-9921. 7 Mr. Bobby at gmail.com is a way you can get in contact with us, and make sure you get the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept book, which Mr. Fuller will talk about later on in the program. I think I got it all out the way. Yes, at producejustice.com. Very important. Okay, Mr. Fuller, let's do this. She said, good rising. She said, I've been learning about 5G technology lately. 5G is the new wireless technology that makes our wireless devices work at lightning speed. 5G is, in fact, dangerous radiation. Since 2018, some scientists have tried to stop the construction of cell towers that look like fake trees communities to prevent 5G from harming the public. 5G causes respiratory issues. I do not believe in coincidence, Mr. Fuller. Many believe that 5G is the real coronavirus. Mr. Fuller, do you think this is possible? If so, why would the racists allow technology that could harm them too? As you mentioned, we all need air to breathe. Thank you for your time, Jane Lance.
Well, the racist philosophy is anti what we call life, basically. They worship death. They're death worshipers. They like to see, things dead, particularly darkness. Kill darkness. Darkness is a part of the universe. You go to kill darkness, but they say drive out darkness. There's a newspaper here in Washington, D.C. that says something about darkness. That's there, against darkness. And in the word guide that you can get by going to Produce Justice, I put all the different ways that, not all, nowhere near all, but I just give some examples of how people even talk about dark moods. I mean, who has ever photographed a mood? Stop and think about it. Say, well, I'm in a dark mood today. Dark mood? How did the mood get dark? How do you know the mood is dark? What makes the mood dark? Why did you choose that word? Well, it's something, derogatory. Yeah, that's what I thought. Right. Everything that's dark is derogatory. Black cat, the witch at Halloween. All right, evil, darkness. So naturally, if you come up with a mindset, you see someone with dark skin, that's something that you do something to. That's something that you do something against. All right? So that type of mindset, when you do anything like that, and then your mind becomes twisted, not only when it comes to that type of thing. You start thinking in terms of worshiping something being dead. You'll get to the place where things that you dream up have to do with making things dead. Even when you bring something alive, rescue something from being dead, you think about killing it again, because your focus is always on death and having the power of what we call life and death, but choosing death over life. Just staying alive enough to cause a whole lot of death. Now that's racist philosophy. Keep yourself just healthy enough to cause death. Now what kind of sense does that make? Just barely being able to hold on. You can take a few more breaths and say, but I just want to live just long enough to be able to add to the body count of things that I can kill. I kill a deer even when I don't have to, and chop off his head and take that head and put it over the mantelpiece and show it off to my friends and say, what? Come in and look at what I killed. Look at what I killed. I kill a fish and hold it up to the camera and say, take my picture. Take my picture. I caused the death of this fish. Okay, you're through with the picture now? You got a good shot? Take another one. Take two more for the record. All right. Make sure to put my name on it and the date and the time and the size of the fish. And then the person does that with the camera. Watch this now. And then you say, okay, buddy, you're through? Say, yep, I got it. I mean, these are glossy photos. I mean, they'll last forever. All right? You killed this fish. Okay, you make sure you got it now. Yeah, I got it. Then what do? Take the fish and throw it back into the water. It's dead now, though, because you kept it out too long. So the scavenger fish, they eat it up. But you killed it. In order to do what? You weren't going to eat the fish. Photo op. You glorify in death. There's something incorrect about people that think like that. There's something incorrect about people who think like that. Not to say anything about acting like that in a very sophisticated, so-called civilized context.
Okay.
Mass insanity. That's what we got. And maybe we're reaping the consequences of it. And a part of the code is that this coronavirus is saying, stay away from each other. And I've been saying that as therapy anyway.
Yes, sir.
Black people are at their best. And white people, maybe, at their best, when we just kind of spread out and do some real serious thinking about what we are supposed to be doing here on this planet. Maybe we are being sent a message, and we ought to listen to it.
Okay. All righty. All right. Thank you, Jane Lance, for that. We're going to get Richard from California. Robert, contact me. But Richard from California, you're next. Go ahead, please, with your question for Mr. Fuller.
All right. Good morning, and thank you for your show. My question, well, first I want to make a quick statement about Mr. Fuller always says we're in a prison. And, kind of I was on a bubble with that. But now I'm 100% all in on it. Because if you look at what's going on, yeah, we're in a prison right now. And we can't even go on the yard. We are on lockdown. And there's actually a head count going on because it's a census year. And on top of that, they're going to vote for a new warden. That's the way I feel with this COVID-19 going on. Now, my question for Mr. Fuller is this. Okay, you state that the white supremacists run everything. They can deceive anybody at any time, any day. Now, a couple of my friends think the earth is flat. Do you think it's possible, or it was possible, for the system of white supremacy, racism, to fool everyone to think that the world was round? Because if you think about it, in kindergarten, they show you a globe and they throw it in your face every year of your life, and we only get the same pictures of the earth from one source, which is NASA. There's nobody else that takes these pictures. I'm 50 years old. I know what the globe looks like, and I know what NASA is. Do you think it's possible that the white supremacists know the earth is flat and they're telling us it's a globe to keep us in control?
Yes, it's possible. Everything I ever learned, I learned from them. That's why I'm so corrupt. I was just a little wide-eyed black baby that came into the world of the system of white supremacy. So what do I know? I'm born in a prison. I'm a prisoner of war. They made war on me based on my color before I was born. Okay? So I came out of the womb in prison, milling around in the prison yard. So if that's the only world you have ever known, the warden comes around and, like in the movie Shawshank Redemption, and gives you the gospel, waves a holy book, maybe, and
that could be in the form of a
then
globe.
out of his mouth, says, "I'm your God." He's the warden of the prison, Warden Norton. If you go by the movie Shawshank Redemption, say, you can give your mind to wherever you want to, but your body belongs to me. And so my mind too, because the body kind of follows the mind, and the mind follows the body, but depends on who's controlling the body and the mind. So what do I know except what they tell me? They might tell me that the world is, elongated, that they discovered it last night at 8:30 p.m., that they made some reassessments, and someone who's been working on it for the last 85 years discovered that the world is really not flat and not round, but sort of elongated in a circular manner, but not quite completely, or something like that. And what do I know except to say that they said it? Because that's all I can say, even now.
Okay, I understand. And I appreciate you taking my call.
That's my view. I'm just telling the truth. The code says to stick with the truth. Everything that comes from something I've been told. Everything, including all the things that I value. I've been told that. Read this, read that. Go here, go there. Have a cup of coffee. I've been told that. I don't know. What do I know? I've been trained by the wardens of the prison.
That makes
and
me
it's a
with your
messed up situation because it could be a lot better, and it could be perfect.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And with your answer, it leads me to believe that that it's a grand deception, that they are just fooling us to keep our minds off of what's really going on, so we won't become free thinkers.
Absolutely. That's the point that I'm making. So we're in something called the universe, I believe. I've been told that. See, I don't really know. They say that there are billions and billions and billions of stars out there. Literally billions. Some people say trillions. But Neely Fuller, if you ask him, do you really know that, Fuller? I don't know if that's true or not. But I can't say it's not true. See, that's another thing the white supremacists are experts at, which you have to be in order to be a great deceiver.
Confused.
You will say some things that are absolutely true. And then maybe out of 10 things that you say, you'll say 8 things that are absolutely true. But the white supremacists are shrewd. Out of 10 things, they'll say 8 things that are absolutely true, and then they'll slip in 2 things out of the 10, that last 2, that are absolutely false. And that causes what? Confusion.
All day long.
Out of confusion, boy, do you have some type of power, because you don't know what to believe or when to believe it.
All right, Ronnie from California. I know you're up early because it's only 7:15 out there. But thank you for.
Richard.
Oh, I'm sorry, Richard. I'm sorry. I think I had Ronnie looking at it. Thank you, Richard. My bad. Thank you. But thanks for calling in. Don't be a stranger. Call in again. Thank you. All righty. Let's see here. Let's do this here. Richard, I think he corrected me. Let's see. As we go to the Gmails, let me see if I can get Raj in here. Okay. On the Gmail front, Mr. Fuller, this is Raj, and he says this. Mr. Fuller, if the government tells all American residents to stay home for at least 3 weeks to do the coronavirus, then due to the coronavirus, then what do you suggest we do in that 3-week period? In addition to the previous question, if a nationwide 3-week shutdown period triggers frustration and irritation in the people due to cabin fever and restrictions, which can easily lead to destruction and robbery, then how should non-white people respond to these situations and scenarios? Thank you very much, Raj.
Lesson again from a prison movie, since I always use a prison analogy. Shawshank Redemption. What did Andy Dufresne do, the main character in the movie, that everybody kind of looked up to? Use his mind. He says, I'm in this prison cell. I'm not going nowhere. So I will use my mind to do what? Well, for one thing, he played chess. Chess is a game, you might say a scientific game, of figuring things out, what moves to make, all right? So he carved, and he learned a lot about stone, and also he thought about, well, in order to learn more about a lot of things, I'm going to think of ways and means and write a whole lot of letters, since I got a lot of time to do it. I got nothing but time to try to get a library. Bring the world to me, the world of knowledge right in here where I am, that will help me to get out of the situation that I'm in. All right? I can't go out into the world. I'll bring the world to me. What world? The world of knowledge and understanding. So I'll talk Warden Norton into helping me to write these letters so that I can get the funds to bring a library into the prison. And then I will go into that library and I will study. I will expand that library that we already have, bring in more books, and I will study. Study what? Study how the different type of rocks. See, people remember the movie script. Andy Dufresne studied rocks. You say, you study rocks? Say, yeah, because this prison is made out of rocks. And so in studying the rocks, he found out the difference between one type of stone, one type of cement, things, that you make prisons out of, stone. He studied stones and found out that the prison was made out of inferior material, probably some contractor, all right, in a system that is incorrect to start with. People are always up to something. So he found out that he could carve his way out of there through that inferior material. It took him a little while using the type of tool that was available. He used what he had. Thurgood Marshall analogy. I did the best I could with what I had. He didn't have much. But he carved his way through that wall and then figured out, okay, inferior stones and whatnot, maybe the pipes are not maintained, so maybe they are inferior by now. So he could take a stone, knock a hole in a pipe. And he got in that pipe. And it's kind of an analogy, too, of black people's situation. Because he swam through what? Sewage, which is what the white supremacists made this world of in black people's minds to start with. See, black people's minds are full of sewage, waste matter, all right? So Andy Dufresne swam through that and got out into clear water, all right? There's a lot of lessons in that movie, okay, if you look for them, okay?
Yes, sir.
And once he got out, then he did the, play it again, Sam scenario, white supremacy again. He managed to get red out because he left behind in his wake.
Yes.
All right. Oh, so a message, okay? And Red got the message and was able to follow Master, all right, to say what the nail. Okay.
You know what, Mr. Fuller? You just brought up a point there that I didn't even think about, even though I saw the movie. But yes, Andy Dufresne crawled through raw sewage, and we all know the other acronym for that, to get to the clear water, and that's what we have to do. Thank you so much, Mr. Fuller, for bringing that up, because I never thought about that. Lessons learned in the movie. Thank you for one of my researchers for listening, Trent. He's on the line listening. Sylvia, thank you for listening. You're on the line. And Richard from California, you mentioned something about the world being flat and NASA and all that. You will hear a lot of things saying that NASA means never a straight answer, or supposedly in Hebrew it means to deceive. But if you look up in Strong's Concordance, I think it is 5375, they have theirs numbered. It actually, Strong says, according to Strong's, it means to lift up. You will have to make the decision on that, Richard from California, if you are still listening. Those of you who are listening, you are now listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. It is also called the CRCS, same thing, Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. To get in contact with the show, you can call 516-453-9921, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, and my researcher, Trent. But he's listening, so if I make a mistake, he'll be right on me. Thank you. Also, along with Moon Pie, which is Leon, and Robert, they also are guiding me. Let's see here. By the way, Ronnie, you want to listen to the show, you have to go to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com, and on that you can hear the current show and all other shows that we have done, I believe, since February the 4th. I believe that's then. But you can get them all. All righty. producejustice.com. Okay, let's go to, is it Lola? Yes, Lola, you are on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. Mr. Fuller, I must say this. I am truly, truly thankful to the universe and to the Creator to be able to be aligned in this time and this energy, to be able to receive the information that you give us, to be able to receive your wisdom. For a long time I've been trying to find, or just longing for, a master teacher, someone to teach me about my condition, to find understanding, and to be able to encounter and to find this type of information and to hear it and to just listen. I think I'm forever grateful for this and your commitment to getting us to understand our condition. Your book has truly saved my life, and I'm just thankful for that. It's like your response to everything is so constructive and just so wise, and every time you respond, it's like you're decoding what has been coded in us, from the white supremacy. And to me, I think that's a genius. I am truly thankful for you, Mr. Fuller. But my question is, what is the compensatory counter-racist code to a person who feels like their life is being threatened? So what is the compensatory code with that? If I feel like my life is being threatened at that moment, what is I supposed to do at that time and that moment?
Oh, you defend yourself the best way you can, because under prison conditions, as you're a prisoner of war, there's a war going on, so we're always in a terrible situation, and black people collectively and individually have to get out of the mindset of trying to feel good about a bad situation, because that's what we dedicate ourselves to. We look around at the world and, everything is angry and out of place and nothing is working the way it ought to, and we're in a dismal situation worldwide. So we, that's why we get on drugs and all that type of stuff. No, that's a quick fix, but it's not a fix. So that's a fix you don't want to get in. So dump that. The whiskey stores and all like that, no. And that's another thing I noticed, according to the news I've heard about the whiskey stores now are producing something constructive. I mean, soap. Hey, that needed cleaning up. I mean, and so I don't know what to think about that, but there it is. That's what I heard. I heard that a lot of the so-called liquor stores are now turning out soap. In other words, cleaning up what you messed up. All right? That's what soap does. Okay? So I'm saying there are some messages being sent here, and take advantage of those messages. Okay? Even though the messages are a mess, and we're in a mess, but you do the best you can. That's all, from day to day. Just like I keep using that prison analogy, because we are in a prison. Every day in a prison, somebody, a fellow prisoner trying to undermine you. Usually that's the first thing that you have to contend with. Mm-hmm. Your cellmates, all right? Your cellmates stole your shoestrings, and so you got to argue about that, okay? But try to minimize these conflicts by minimizing all unnecessary and non-constructive contacts. And this disease is doing a lot of that. For the first time, a lot of us are getting a little chance to do some serious thinking about what we're supposed to be doing on this planet. Since, from what they say, they, whomever they are, it might get real messed up where these few thousands who are now dead turn into the multi-millions. We don't really know. But a lot of people are forecasting that could happen. And it could be all of us who are talking to each other right now on this program. That includes us. It could morph into something like that, where all of a sudden you just get the coronavirus mixes with something else and just sweeps. In just a matter of days, you got millions and millions and millions and millions of people dead. Boom, just like that. In a matter of days, people just drop wherever they are. People walking their dogs just drop right where they are. People on their way to work. People on the bus just doze off to sleep and don't wake up. That could happen.
Yes.
So I'm saying you just do the best you can, like any prisoner of war. You don't know what's going to happen today, but don't worry about it. Just do the best you can minute by minute. Do the most constructive thing. Don't worry about it, because worrying is not going to help.
All right. Thank you, Lola, so much. All righty, we have our station break here. Welcome. You're listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. And if you'd like to get in contact with the show, you can by calling 516-453-9921, or you can Gmail me at the numeral number 7, Mr. Bobby at BOBBY@gmail.com, and we will attempt to get that information or get you online. And when you do call, by the way, hit the number 1 button, and in rotation you will be expedited up at the top as somebody just did, or we'll do all that. Any information that you need concerning this show or past programs, books, which I will have Mr. Fuller talking about in 15 minutes, you can go to producejustice.com. That is producejustice.com, and you can hear Neely Fuller all you want to. Okay, here. Coming up, we're going to have Dante. There was a question about the white man's anus, and all that and more as we start our last half hour on the CRCS, Counter Racist Code Show, or the Counter Racist Code Show is what the title is, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Let's go to Dante. Dante, you're back. Go ahead with your question. See if we get him on. Okay, Dante?
Yes, can you hear me?
Okay, there you go. All right, go ahead.
All right, Dr. Fuller, my question is on the Creator and applying the logic to the Creator and prayer. My question is, how do you pray in the system of racism, white supremacy? Is it worthwhile to pray? Do you believe the Creator is listening logically? How do we maintain a sense of spirituality or connection to that Creator under the counter-racist logic and, the system of racism, white supremacy, from your perspective?
All right, Mr. Fuller?
Well, you pray according to whatever religion you have, I guess. I can't speak against any religion. The code does not allow me to speak against any religion except the religion of white supremacy. But if you talk about the way that I pray, I use the universal prayer, one that I say is universal. I didn't make up. I made up a label for it because I was already doing it, because I see everybody doing this, and so I say it's a universal prayer. But it's a matter of being conscious of doing it, and that is the one thing that the coronavirus has taken away from people as a lesson. I say it's a lesson in that, and that is what I started off the program talking about today, and that is breathing. You come into the world, you're not breathing, and so the doctor makes a motion, or somebody does, they tell me, and someone slaps the baby, gently on the back to jumpstart. Jumpstart what? Breathing. The baby suddenly inhales. And the baby, the baby is inhaled because now the baby's inhaled this foul air, and that foul air goes into the baby's nostrils. But air is necessary, so the baby yells out. That's just my own analysis, that the world is so full of evil that the baby perceives it. And that first breath, that's why babies come here crying. They don't come here laughing. That's the conclusion I came to. Why do babies come here crying rather than laughing? Babies can cry and babies can laugh, but they come here crying everywhere. I've never heard of a baby coming into the world laughing. I've always heard of them crying, And what are they crying about? Because everything is all messed up, that's why. And even before the baby's brain kicks in. So therefore, to answer the question, I use the universal prayer, which means what? When I get up in the morning, this is just me. I look out the window, and I look for anything that's moving. Usually, I look up because we have a tendency to look up if we think about spirituality. For some reason, we look up. we can look anywhere. I mean, spirits are everywhere. I mean, but somehow we've been trained. So I look up, and what am I looking for when I look up? Usually I look for a bird because I was fascinated by birds as what you might call a country boy, because I always wanted at some point to be like a bird, to be able to just fly over mountains and get as far away from the country as I could get in a few minutes and see other places, other than that dirt road I was on, okay? So, but I do something else while I'm doing that. I take a deep breath, inhale, and then I hold it for a few seconds and exhale. And then I think about what I just did. Now, I call that the universal prayer because every creature on the planet breathes. That's why I called it. I gave it that title. That's in the textbook itself. Every creature breathes. Whales breathe. Alligators breathe. Birds breathe. And of course, when you exhale and don't inhale anymore, you're dead. So breathing is extremely important. And that applies to everybody. No exceptions to that. Anytime you exhale and do not inhale again, you are expiring from this existence and going into another existence somewhere else. But you are no longer here to perform like you have been if you don't inhale again. So by my holding my breath, I count to 10 sometimes, and then I exhale. And I just think about what I did and the source of what I did, because I'm not the source. I don't even know how I did that. I can do it right now. I can inhale, hold my breath, and then exhale. I'm controlling that. But what's controlling me? That's the question. So whatever's controlling me allows me to do that. But there will come a time when I will exhale and I will not be able to inhale again. I don't care how hard I try. And some people who are experiencing this coronavirus, from what I've heard, that is exactly what's happening to them.
Okay.
They are exhaling just like they have been doing while they're asleep. See, we exhale and inhale while we're asleep. And while we're awake, we can control it. We can hold our breath. Underwater, we can hold our breath, go swimming and go down. And then when we come to the surface, we exhale. But suppose it gets to the place where you exhale and cannot inhale again, and that's going to happen to each one of us. And every morning when I get up, I think about that. And then, because I go through that experience deliberately, I exhale, then I inhale, and I hold my breath, and then I exhale again and begin to inhale again. And then I think about how I'm able to do that. It's because whatever created me enabled me to do that. I don't have to ask nobody's permission or nothing. I mean, that's strictly between me and the Creator. Whatever created me.
Okay.
And that's universal prayer. Now, I say to everybody, whether that's your church. That teaches you everything right there if you're really thinking. You don't have to go nowhere and ask nobody nothing. You don't have to know nothing about Ezekiel and the wheel. Because I don't.
Oh.
I don't know nothing about that. But I do know that I inhale and exhale. And I do know that there is a source for that is greater than me.
All righty. Thank you, Dante, for your call. Let me say this for those that do call in. My producers and engineers, they're very good people. And they like to forward me, your name so that I can go right to you and call. And I'm just going to ask, please, ma'am, please, sir, when they ask you that question, all they're doing is just asking you what your name is so that I can properly respond to that. So if you will, could you please, if you will, give a name? In the remaining moments of the show, which I'm going to try to get to, a question about the white man's anus, about what you have to say about the flag, Mr. Fuller, and you've talked about both of those subjects here. Let me do this here. Let me go to Brenda. Can we get Brenda up here? Let's see. Brenda's just listening. Okay. I'm sorry. I thought she had a call. Okay. Let's see here. This caller here did not give a name, but the area code is 716. Go ahead. Can we get her? Okay, there we go. Okay, you're on now with Mr. Fuller. What is your question, please?
Hi, sorry. I didn't hear anyone ask me for a name. I guess I need to
okay. All righty. All right, sorry about that. I apologize for that. Maybe I misunderstood. But anyway, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question, please?
Maybe it's my mistake. Sorry. I wanted to ask about non-constructiveness. With a lot of people being laid off and people having so much extra time on their hands, Mr. Fuller, do you think that we'll see a huge increase of non-constructiveness?
Yes, because that's mostly what we're geared to do. Black people have been carefully trained under the system of racism to be a destructive people. And that's what we are. We don't really embrace anything that's constructive. I mean, we disdain constructive activity. We try to get away from it. We've been trained that way. I mean, when we start getting a little bit of leeway of not being told what to do, and we start showing a little bit of independence or wanting to be independent, so the white supremacists said, you're not getting away from me and do anything constructive, because I'm going to warp your mind that even when you're not around me, you're not going to think about doing anything constructive because you are a Negro. You are a black person. And a black person is never supposed to do anything constructive unless there's a white person beating them over the head with a hammer or whipping them with a whip or something like that. And then that way they'll do something constructive. But if you go out on your own, you're going to immediately start thinking about doing something stupid, because that's the way I train you to do. When you're on your own and you're black, you are searching for a way to do something stupid. You love stupidity. If there's anything that makes sense, you don't want no part of it. You hate it. You consider it to be something called WORK, work. But having fun, and you're black, means automatically you're going to do something that is totally stupid, that not even a squirrel or an animal would think about doing. I mean, they say, well, that's a black person. That's what they do, stupid stuff. They worship stupidity. We've been trained that way, particularly in the Northwestern Hemisphere. And if we evaluate our thinking while we have this downtime, so to speak, and watch that term, downtime. No, time is time. It's how you use it. There's no such thing as downtime or uptime or sideways time. It's time. You're supposed to be using time to do what? Something constructive. Something constructive like what? Problem solving. This is an excellent time to sit down and map out the rest of your existence on this planet if you're going to have one. And so you get a little breathing space. Use it. Use that time to do what? Study. Study what? I mean, even just looking at those who have it, some of the movies that I've recommended people see, in order to do what? Learn things that you can use. That's an easy way to do it, if you just want to do it the easy way. I wish I had that list now up on my website. I've been promising to do that for about 7 years now, and I stopped talking about it because it hasn't gotten done because I've been running around trying to do so many other things. But this would be an excellent time for those who have heard me name some of the movies. Just look at the movies and look for the lessons, and just take notes on the lessons of things to do what to do and what not to do. That's all it is. It's not anything complicated. Everything that we need to learn is about what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say, when to make contact with a person and what for, and when not to make contact with that particular person and what for.
Okay.
And keep in mind one criteria: every move you make is going to be either constructive or non-constructive. Stay in the constructive lane.
Got it. All righty, quickly. Let's go to, thank you, my brother. Let's go to Kevin quickly. Kevin from Las Vegas. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
All right. Good morning, gentlemen.
Oh, Kelvin.
I have a question. Kelvin, yes.
Yes. Uh-huh.
I have a question in the Word Guide on page 237. I'm sorry, 273.
273. Let me see here.
It's called
273.
273.
Okay. All righty. Go ahead, Kelvin.
I would like to know how did Mr. Fuller come up with 10, that term. I love the term. I'd like to know if you can explain it a little bit more about 10.
Oh, that was for people who have my original textbook, the 1984 edition, if you look on the back of it, because it's not on the subsequent volumes, the Word Guide or the 2016 updated, revised, expanded edition of the book that you can get by going to producejustice.com. I have right behind my name, I said, I, Neely Fuller, then I have 1/0. Well, that's just a reminder to me. I had that as a sort of a numerical equivalent of who I am, to remind me of who I am. That the 1 stands for everything, all right? Like in a basic computerization, from what I learned back in the 1980s at that time, basic computerization consists of what? 1, 0, 0, 1, 1, 0, 0, 1. It's all 1 and zeros for some reason. People who invented computers and all like that use that as some type of equation. I don't know how or what it means and whatnot, but that's the basis for it. Everything is 1, 0, 0, 1, 0, 1, 1, 0. Consistently. So I said, okay, that's me. 1, and I gave that a meaning, because nothing has meaning unless it has meaning. That's a part of the code, if you get what I mean. So I said, okay, I'm 1, meaning everything. When you say 1, 1 is everything, and everything is 1. Universally. That's what unit means. Unit, 1. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And also, I put a slash there to kind of separate the two. I said, and I'm also 0. So I'm everything and I'm nothing at the same time.
At the same
because
time.
Everything comes from nothing. I came from nothing. The Creator made me out of nothing. After the Creator made nothing, all right? Because in order for there to be something, there first has to be nothing. So that's why I always said that people don't create anything. Sometimes you hear artists say that this is one of my creations. No, he didn't create anything, sir. Out of all due regard, think scientifically. You did not create that I'm looking at. You arranged what was already there. What I'm looking at had to be created by a creator. People do not create anything. No people create anything. I've never seen a person create anything. They made something out of something that was already there. But what was the something that the creator made? There was nothing. But the creator had to invent a thing called nothing in order to put the something in the nothing. Okay? So that goes beyond the limits of my mind. Because I cannot fathom what nothing, what came before nothing. What did it look like? What came before nothing? What did what does that look like? Now, so I said that is to remind me that there is a creator or creators. Some people say it's a lot of different gods and whatnot. I don't argue about that because I don't really know. But I do know that I didn't make myself, and if I did, I don't remember it. So what am I? 1-0, everything and nothing. I have all the elements of the entire universe in me. And at the same time, I have nothing.
At the same
because
time.
I'm not a creator.
All righty, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, Calvin from Las Vegas, for calling. Thank you so much. All righty. Mr. Fuller, we have about 9 or 8 minutes left, but it is important that I have you speak very briefly about your book. So could you go ahead, please?
Well, the book is designed to help victims of racism to end racism. That's my intention, and replace it with something better than racism. And that something, theoretically, never really been seriously tried, is a thing called justice. And then after that, a thing called correctness, which means getting in balance with everything in the universe. And rather than have a world dominated by racist man, racist woman, and their victims, have a world that is orchestrated by universal man and universal women who are in harmony with the universe and each other, which nobody is on this planet. According to all the evidence and everything, all the news that I hear, I don't hear of any place that's the type of place that it ought to be, or any people who are the quality of people that people should be. See, not compared to what has been, or compared to how people are now. That's what I wrote the book for. That's not the comparison I'm making. See, because we have been trained to compare ourselves with each other, mostly, as black people, and then ultimately compare ourselves with white people. And this is not a logical comparison. None of it. None of it. No, we compare ourselves with what we should be, white people and non-white people, and all creatures, what they should be, and that is in tune with the universe at its most constructive possibility, period, which has never been achieved by anyone and never been really seriously taken into consideration. So I wrote a book, first of all, to get rid of the first stumbling block, and that's the system of white supremacy, because that's just a bunch of nonsense. Get rid of racism, and then work on becoming universal man with universal woman, in tune with the most constructive that there possibly can be in creatures, which is what we are, just creatures, in the known universe. And I just gave that title to it, Universal Man, Universal Woman. Because right now we're just a bunch of scraps.
Okay.
The white supremacists have made scraps out of us, and they have a mind full of scraps that's turned us into scraps. Because all that stuff that they're doing about racism and this saying it's the best of all worlds is a bunch of nonsense. So I'm writing the book basically to get rid of racism first, what each individual can do to do that. And you can get the book by going to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com.
Okay, producejustice.com. Okay, now, let's see. We've got two more things here. This one right here. The universal that you say concerning the flag, a lot of people want to hear that. They want to be clear about that. Your statement concerning the salutation to any flag. What is your, and you said it many times on the program, but those that need to hear it, I was requested to ask you about the flag, a flag.
Yes, you can salute any flag or give tribute and allegiance to any flag, anything that anybody calls a flag. I mean, let's say, where's the flag? Where's the flag? You know, do you have a flag of any kind? I don't care what kind of flag it is. They'll say, yeah, and you got to honor this flag, or we're going to chop your head off, or we're going to punish you, or we're going to say bad things about you, or something like that. And so in order in a compensatory way, back when there was a lot of flag controversy going on, and every now and then it still erupts, I came up with, I say, the best possible pledge you can make to any flag that should satisfy everybody, because it makes the most sense. And here it is as follows. I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me. Now, that pledge is also in the textbooks, too. You'll find it there, so I don't know where I put it. But I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me. And you can, if you're doing a body movement, you can salute it if you want to, or put your hands on your chest, or put your hands on your hips, fold your arms, but that's your salute.
Okay.
But your verbal salute is, I do at all times relate to the flag the exact same way that the flag relates to me. And that's any flag anywhere in the world. You can take that salute, and nobody can really argue against it.
All righty.
It's the best flag. It's called a universal pledge. Compensatory universal pledge.
Okay, compensatory universal pledge. Okay, and
you will never find a pledge better than that.
Okay, and the last thing in the remaining 2.5 minutes that we have about the statement you made about the white man's anus being the new vagina.
The white male anus, apparently, according to the white supremacy, the way they're setting it up in black people's minds, the white male anus is going to be the new black vagina. That's what they are doing all over the world, directly, indirectly, directing black people's minds that the white male anus, ultimately, after you get through with all these degenderization and sexual obliteration and sexual sabotage and whatever you want to call it, all this regenderizing the entire planet, that's what the white supremacists have in mind for the non-white people of the planet, that ultimately the white male anus will be the new black vagina. Black vaginas will be obsolete, so that black females will be looking around saying, our vaginas are not worthy of anything. So what we'll do is just wrap our arms around each other because, no males are coming because the white male anus has taken our place.
Wow. Gotta leave it there. Hate to, but gotta leave it there. Had to put that at the end, so to speak, no pun intended. But anyway, thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, all of our callers, including the racists that chimed in. Thank you. We look forward to next week's show. Thank you for listening. Thank you, Leon. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Trent. Thank you all. We'll see you next week on the CRTS, the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Thank you so much.